What's up, guys? Welcome back down to Ice Level for a special Pairwise review short. As always, I'm your host, James Blennau. We're going to be doing a really cool, quick little short here. We're going to go over the top 16 teams that would currently be eligible to make it to the NCAA Tournament. Now, some of those teams aren't in the top 16 of the Pairwise because there are 6 conference champion auto bids. If you don't know how the Pairwise works, basically it's a way to measure teams and their records against other teams to see who the top teams in the country are. Wow, that was a lot of saying teams. But it's basically a method mimicking the matrix that the NCAA uses to select the teams for the tournament. So without further ado, let's look at number 1. Number 1 team in the Pairwise right now, BC, a 1-1 record in a split against UMass this weekend, keeps the Eagles in a close first place. The win in the Amherst definitely helps them in the first place spot, despite Michigan State jumping them in the USCHO poll this week. Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perreault, James Hagans, and the usual suspects kept the Eagles' record strong against a highly competitive Hockey East opponent, but Andre Gasso has been a major piece for Greg Brown's squad. With 10 goals and 10 assists on the season, he's been a keystone for the top 6 as a junior center in such a young team. Now, with Michigan State, the current number 1 in the USCHO poll, still has a lot on its plate before the NCAA tournament in just about a month. If Sparty wants to defend its Big Ten championship, the stars like Red Savage, Isaac Howard, and Trey Augustine need to avoid falling into the trap this weekend when 18th-ranked Penn State comes to East Lansing for the second-to-last conference series. Notre Dame will be a nice break headed into the conference tournament for the current frontrunners, but there are too many dangerous teams in the Big Ten to count anyone in or out. Speaking of the Big Ten, here's Minnesota. Bob Motzko's Gophers could sneak up and grab the number 1 seed and regular season championship with an all-important series this weekend as number 7 Ohio State visits Mariucci, and next weekend heading to Pagula to play Penn State. New top goalie Liam Soulier has been playing lights out with an above .900 save percentage in the last 5 games, including against Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Michigan. Despite the offensive firepower, defense does win championships, and Minnesota will only go as far as the back end, led by Ryan Chesley and Soulier in net, will take them. Maine has been one of the most consistent teams in the country this year, always finding a way to win with an overall record of 19-5-5 and only 3 losses in conference, putting them just below BC. Mike Richter Award finalist goalie Albin Boy is filling Victor Osman's hole like he never even left. And with only 1 series against a ranked opponent without a point, this team is set up to make a deep run, not just in the conference, but in the NCAA tournament. 2 regulation losses against Boston College hurt their pairwise ranking, but a win against them in the Hockey East tournament and wins to close the regular season against UMass and UConn could give them a spot in the Manchester Regional close to home. Western Michigan has won 9 of their last 10 games, our top NCHC team right now, and with a few overtimes in there. Their only loss in that streak was in overtime too. This streak could all mean nothing though if they manage to lose even one of the next 2 games in the desert against a mid-ranked Arizona State team. With North Dakota coming to Lawson Arena after that too, momentum will be everything going into the NCHC Frozen Face-Off, with reigning national champions Denver also in the mix for a tournament title. 3 weeks of conference play could be enough to separate the good from the great and cause top seeds to be a lot closer than they are right now, with every loss counting towards standings and the pairwise. Ohio State is another one of the plethora of teams with games at the end of this season against top conference opponents, and let me just say, well done to the conferences for scheduling the way they did. The Buckeyes play like a team more than almost any other in their conference, with 6 players over 20 points this season, goalie splitting time nearly 50-50, and skaters up and down the roster with at least 10 blocked shots. They've brought into the system similarly to the 2022-23 team that lost in the regional final to eventual national champions Quinnipiac, with possibly even more talent than that team. Winning against Minnesota would inch them closer to a chance at a nearly home site regional in Toledo. Now with BU, many of the teams on this list have been consistent in their performances. The Terriers, not so much. 1 game they'll lose 7-2 to North Dakota, another they'll beat BC in the Beanpot Final 4-1. Jay Pandolfo's team will need to find its footing with the upcoming games against a hot Northeastern team, ranked UConn and Providence, and a trap on senior night in Vermont. The young team with freshman stars like Cole Iserman, Cole Hudson, Kamil Bednarik, and filling goalie Mikhail Yegorov need to age quickly to make a deep run at the end of this season and retain their spot in the tournament. Now with Providence, the Friars are a bit of a strange team this year. While they've stayed near and in the upper half of the USCHO poll, they've relatively struggled in the Hockey East, currently 7th out of 11 teams. In a conference that's so competitive, losses may not hurt their pairwise ranking as much as their seeding in the conference tournament, but as soon as they add up or an early exit in the Hockey East tournament to a bottom tier team happens out of nowhere, and other teams in other conferences make deep runs, especially North Dakota, who the Friars lost to earlier this year, it could be game over with just a drop of 5 spots in the worst case. UConn may be the most well-balanced team that isn't talked about this season. With no real superstar players, guys like Ryan Tattle, Joey Muldowney, and Tyler Muzelik have taken the Huskies to new heights more than with Arseny Sergeyev and Matthew Wood just last year. Mike Cavanaugh's team keeps finding ways to win, whether it be 1-0 in the CTI's final or 4-2 at Maine just a few weeks before that. It seems the winning culture is spread from the basketball teams, and if they take some more lessons, it can lead them all the way to the promised land. Maybe with a few less riots on campus, though. The reigning national champions have had a confusing season so far. Denver started the season on a massive win streak, but then started to skid at the end of 2024. The loss to UNLV definitely didn't help, especially having team leadership like David Carl and Zeev Boyum out. But the Pioneers have definitely not looked the same since their early season form. While Jack Devine and Matt Davis are also having strong performances as veteran presences, it will take some vintage Denver magic to pull off a run in this tournament. They'll most likely keep their spot, but don't mess up because losing adds up. UMass Lowell is one of the more surprising teams in this bunch this year, and with UConn taking up most of the attention for a rapid improving team in the Hockey East, they've kind of flown under the radar. After a dismal 8 wins last year, the Riverhawks have earned 15 so far this year, with ranked wins over BU and Providence, but with late season games against the Friars and UMass, it certainly isn't an easy path into the NCAA Tournament. Keep spreading the wealth though in points, and the depth will take them far. Michigan feels like one of those teams that's just great every year. Calling them a blue blood's a little corny, but I digress. Michael Hage, TJ Hughes, Luca Fantilli, and Garrett Shefsky lead a fire-powered forward core, and it's hard to stop the Blue from getting extended zone time. It's a good thing for the other teams in the Big Ten, though, that there's a plethora of starting top goalies. Regardless, a team that puts up 3 to 4 goals at least once every weekend is bound to cause some trouble. The defense with Ethan Edwards will be telling for their run in the Big Ten and NCAA Tournament, because if we know anything about the best teams in this conference, they tend to lose to well-disciplined defenses when it really matters. The Minutemen are rallying off their win at BC this past Friday, and if that team shows up during the postseason, oh boy. The problem is, though, that UMass team with Cole O'Hara and Jack Musa tearing it up all night long and Michael Robel saving 35-plus shots can't possibly show up every night. Team defense led by Lyndon Alger and Owen Murray needs to stop the onslaughts on their star goalie. The Hockey East tournament will be the perfect test, but they can ill afford to count out the next 3 series against New Hampshire, Lowell, and Maine. This Bobcats team is hanging on to a tournament spot by a thread right now. Early season wins against Penn State and Cornell have shown what the team can do, but lackluster performances in other ranked and conference games have made me question whether they can win their first Whitelaw Cup since 2016. Barring an upset in any other conference tournament aside from the CCHA and AHA, and needing to nearly win out, the Bobcats certainly don't control their destiny. Right now there's only one goal for Quinnipiac to prove why they belong, and it lies at the home of miracles. Winning Lake Placid, win the trophy, and prove everyone wrong with a ragtag team of transfers and freshmen. The Mavericks have stars across all facets of their game that are keeping them in contention for the CCHA right now at number 17 in the pairwise and the top of the conference by a small margin. With Augustana looking dangerous and Ferris State surprising everyone, the Mavericks almost definitely need to win the conference to find themselves in the NCAA tournament, and Alex Tracy, Rhett Pitlick, and Mason Wheeler need to spread some of that magic like they had on their 7-game win streak onto the bench to win the Mason Cup on what would right now be home ice. TJ Maritolo's Pioneers have been in front of Atlantic Hockey America most of this year, but with Niagara looming and looking for their first tournament title since moving to the Atlantic, it won't be easy. Campus site crowds will help the Pioneers as they have home ice throughout the tournament, especially with atmospheres like they had against UConn. But it's time for this team to show why they could beat teams like UMass and Cornell. If those teams show up this March with Felix Trudeau, Mikey Adamson, and Cohen DeYoung playing at their best, there's nobody in that conference that can stop them from making the NCAA Tournament for the first time in program history. That's all I got for this week's Pairwise review. Thank you guys so much for coming down with me, and I'll see you in the weekend recap on Tuesday.